Good afternoon and welcome to CAD-1's presentation of Autodesk BIM 360 Field and Glue. My name is Stan Henne. I'm the Business Development Manager here at CAD-1. And on my left, your right, is Michael Calkins, AIA, Autodesk Certified Instructor and Technical Specialist, and our lead technical specialist on the Field and Glue products today. So welcome, Michael. Thank you. And we're looking forward to this. CAD-1 was honored by Autodesk. At least so far, we still feel like we were honored by Autodesk to be one of the first dealers in the country to be able to sell this new product. It's entirely cloud-based tools. So as one might expect, we're experiencing, or hopefully we've got them licked, but we may experience a couple little technical difficulties showing the iPad here. We're not quite sure yet, but anyway, you'll get a good presentation and a good, well-rounded view of what this technology is about. Field and Glue actually came about, and I'm sure Michael has some slides, so I won't go into it. They were actually two different products. Field came from a company called Vela, which Autodesk acquired. I think it's about 2.5, 3 years ago now, and this is was a pretty well established tool for the construction industry, the MEP industry, the architectural industry, to track various issues on construction sites, projects, etc. And then Glue is a tool that came about from a company called Horizontal Glue, which Autodesk bought maybe 18 months ago or so, and it's a kind of cloud-based in-field tool that can be used very similarly to Navisworks. In fact, now Autodesk has incorporated the Navisworks engine into it. So the two of them together present a potentially real powerhouse for site monitoring, documentation, and collaboration. We'll get into that more here in a minute. There's our famous slide of what happens in the webinar, and most of you know by now, telephone, mic, and speakers. You can minimize the console by hitting the little orange and white arrow. You can raise your hand if you're just so inclined, and the most important box, the Ask Questions box. You can ask questions, type them in. We'll try and get to them as close to in context as we can. And so without further ado, Michael, let's move forward a little bit. There we go.
Hello, everybody. We're glad you joined us for this. This is a really exciting product. I've been really excited about getting in front of our clients and talking a lot about Glue and Field and really showing off the benefits here. This is one of the things that you're going to see a lot, though. When you start looking into Glue and Field, you're going to see this phrase is really, it kind of encapsulates everything that we're trying to achieve using Glue and Field. Trying to deliver more complete, accurate, connected digital information across the project life cycle for whoever needs it, whenever they need it, wherever they are. Those are the keys here, is that we're trying to put all this information at your fingertips at the time and place that you're actually needing that information, rather than having a roll of drawings sitting on a rack in the project trailer, or worse, back at the office or in the back of somebody's pickup that just left the site. You're going to have this information immediately at your disposal, right in your hands. If you're using your iPad out in the field during the construction process, you're going to be able to access these with web-enabled devices to access the BIM information if you need to, and run clash detection and get all the information that you need. So currently, this is one of the questions we like to ask, is how do you currently manage clash detection and collaboration during the design phase? Is it typical that you're using FTP to exchange, Dropbox I hear a lot, to exchange large BIM models? Are you exchanging Revit files through, basically already using the cloud? But sometimes that's a very serial process that you send out a file, somebody downloads it, then they send you the update, and you download it again. We're creating bottlenecks. This creates a lot of bottlenecks in the process. So how are you dealing with those challenges? During the construction phase, those of you in the construction side of things, How are you dealing with the information that's being produced out there in the field? When somebody has an issue that needs to be recorded and distributed, how's that being handled? How are you handling your safety processes and safety inspections? How are you managing the quality control on the project? At the end of the project, how are you handing over all the information that you've been collecting throughout the construction phase? How are you handing over that information to the client? So we're going to start out looking at Autodesk BIM 360 Glue. So really what we're talking about here is two different services or products or tools really that have different places in the project lifecycle. We're going to start talking about Glue, partly just because it's of where it lies in the project delivery lifecycle. Glue, as Stan had mentioned, can oftentimes be considered or regarded as a form of Navisworks on the cloud. It's not exactly the same thing. It doesn't have the exact same functionality. However, it does use the same clash detection engine now as Navisworks does, meaning when you use Glue and you aggregate your models from the various disciplines, your architect, your structural, mechanical, using Glue, if you run it also in Navisworks, you should get the same results. You should get the same clashes being listed out. The great thing about Glue, though, is it's going to improve efficiency when it comes to this coordination phase. Instead of, like I mentioned before, everybody emailing or transferring BIM data around using whatever process you're currently using, everybody now is going to get access to this BIM 360 Glue platform, who's not everybody who needs to on the project, and everyone will be able to upload their model to the project, and everybody will have access to that instantly. As soon as a model is uploaded to the site, everybody else participating in that project will be able to see that model. And what's great is because this is a cloud-based, it's a cloud-hosted service, what that means is if you have internet access, if you have a web-enabled device, you essentially will get access to all this data wherever you are, wherever you have internet access. You don't have to be sitting at your desk with Navisworks running now in order to view this data. You do have to have internet access to get updates, but when you log into the app on an iPad, let's say, even if you disconnect later on from internet access, Glue will have cached that information in, meaning you can basically take your BIM with you wherever you go, even if you no longer have current internet access. You won't get the updates if somebody places a new model or replaces a model, but you'll have that data along with you. So if you go off to a job site or to a meeting, maybe you just go away for the weekend and would want to have the information with you, you'll have it there. It's cached onto the iPad.
Nothing spells a nice weekend getaway
Nothing like yeah.
looking at models and doing clash detection.
The upside and the downside of mobile computing now, right? Is that you can't always disconnect as cleanly as we'd like. All right, so let's take a look at. Oh, hang on a second.
There we go.
Here's what a typical week in the coordination process can look like. So we have here just a sort of hypothetical project. We've got a design team, a structural, design structural MEP, all of whom are producing BIM data, Revit models, let's say. And we're going to coordinate those through a BIM manager, whoever this might be, at the contractor, within the architecture firm, whoever it is that's spearheading the BIM.
Sometimes the MEP, quite often.
Oftentimes
does it.
Yeah, it could be an owner or a third party contracted by the owner, an owner's rep or something like that. It doesn't really, in this case, it doesn't really matter. The typical workflow is this, that the design team or those producing the content will aggregate it through, they have to run it through this BIM manager who's going to take that information and combine it into the coherent model in order to run clashes and to do coordination. So let's say that happens on Monday. We go into Tuesday. The BIM manager distributes clashes or a report of issues detected to the various parties. We see the designer team and the MEP are given some information. The design team is able to put somebody on it right away. They get the information back to the BIM manager on one day, but it takes an extra period of time for the MEP to work through. They've had a lot more problems to resolve for some reason. So it takes a little bit of time. There's a lag there. So finally, by the end of the week or by the end of whatever the cycle is, everybody gets together now. Hopefully many of the problems have been resolved, and everyone's going to get together and sit in front of this model, potentially all together physically or virtually, but run through a clash detection or through a coordination meeting and spend a significant amount of time resolving any of those issues that couldn't be resolved throughout the lead up to this meeting. And that can be a very lengthy process. You know, we show it here as if it's a week, but obviously on larger projects this can take a lot of time. But now with the adoption of Glue and using this more parallel process, whereas before we're using this serial process of one by one, each member producing the data, each produces in series a set of updates, and we have to be re-aggregated. Here in the Glue-enabled process, we're going to do this in parallel. So we have the same design team. Oh, there we go. We have the same design team, but now instead of everybody exchanging data and funneling it through this BIM manager, who essentially becomes a bottleneck just because of the way that the process works. You know, and if the BIM manager is not even available for a period of time, they might not be able to get to the point of aggregating stuff. Here with Glue, each person on the team, each team has access to the model. Each of those members can upload their model when they are ready to upload the latest information to the cloud, and everybody else on that team will have instant access to that information. And there's all kinds of tools for informing others that the process has happened. There's all kinds of collaboration tools for
markup, red line,
for marking things up. If you find
notes, whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you find a clash, what's great is that each person now, each team, gets the ability to run these clashes on the cloud. So if you are the architect and you'd like to run a clash between the architectural and the structural or the mechanical, you can now do that on the cloud. You can run these tests. And if you find an issue, if you just find a coordination issue of any kind, even if it's not necessarily a clash, you can mark that up using this tool and distribute that information. But this is all done basically in real time instead of having to channel everything through that BIM manager and wait for Friday to come around in order to have the meeting. So we get everything uploaded here to cloud. I'm going to keep going the wrong direction on my slides here. So on Tuesday, the structural MEP work together. On Wednesday, the design and structural maybe do some coordination. They talk through the Glue app. They literally get on the phone. Maybe they're within the same company even, and they discuss. And by Thursday, because as you've been moving along, you've actually been able to resolve and view your own issues that have come up rather than having to be informed of them by the BIM manager. The idea is here we're going to shave off a pretty significant amount of time. Depending on the stories you read from some of the case studies and customer success stories you might see out there, you're going to find people shaving off several hours a week to entire days worth of work during the week, during the coordination process.
Michael, the interesting thing was just, that you've got the BIM manager out whacking blue blobs on the ground on Friday.
They used to be blank. The main slide just says that Friday nothing happens, but I want to show it.
Yeah, so he's out starting his weekend getaway.
Exactly.
The interesting thing was, Michael, that we had lunch with the technology manager at a large architectural firm here in Denver just yesterday, and one that you might know. And he mentioned that, you know, the industry is moving. This coordination cycle used to be the standard and still is the standard, but that the industry is moving so quickly now that this need to have almost or more or less instant or much quicker communication on projects is becoming essential. They need to check in with people maybe 2-3 times a day anymore, which is kind of astounding, really, but at the same time, it's where the industry's going. So Glue provides a lot of that capability.
It does, and what's great now is rather than just using the previous methods like a phone call or an email, now we actually have the ability of doing all of this communication and tracking it within the model itself. So we can actually create markups and make notes, and Glue will be tracking who's accessed the models when, who uploaded when, a model at what point, and you can, depending on who you are within the team, you can set up notifications when structural uploads a new model. Do you want to be informed of that change? You can get all this information as quickly as you really need it. All right, so one of the features of the BIM 360 Glue workflow is this the BIM 360 Glue mobile app. So what this is going to allow for is, and there's really two parts. Let me tell you about this. And the BIM 360 Glue is two parts. There's a mobile app and there's a desktop. It's an app basically. You launch it from the desktop, and it's going to be a web-based. It's going to take you to a web-based interface, and they give you different functionality. The web-based or desktop-based is going to give you a lot. It's going to give you all the tools. You're going to be able to go in there and do clash detection and view markups and more management level stuff. The mobile app, though, this is going to be available on your iPad. It gives you access to these models almost anywhere. So again, as long as you have internet access, you can at least pull down the data. If you disconnect from Wi-Fi, you'll at least have a cached version of all those models, so you can continue to view it. So if you take your iPad out on the field or on site, even if you don't have Wi-Fi, you'll still be able to view this BIM data. It provides for these immersive walkthroughs. So down there, that image we see with the red structural components there, that's an actual screen cap of the mobile app. And we have this great walkthrough feature where using the gyroscope, you can essentially move the iPad around and sort of do, it's not quite to the point of augmented reality, but if you're out there standing on a site, you can navigate yourself to the same room within the BIM model as you are physically standing in during the project, and you can actually navigate around. You have walkthroughs similar to walking. There's a gravity feature just like there is in Navisworks. If you've worked in Navisworks at all, this is going to be a familiar interface, a familiar way of navigating through the model.
But it is kind of amazing when you're, and this is unfortunately one of the limitations of this particular delivery method that we're using today, is that you really can't see, we can't really demonstrate for you, this property of this immersive walkthrough. But it really is quite amazing to be out on a construction site or whatever it may be and have the model set on your iPad and be looking at the northeast corner of the building, holding the iPad up, checking the model against what's actually taking place. That's really amazing.
And what's pretty fantastic is that also, not only are we using this as a walkthrough, that's where sometimes a lot of people will look at it and say, well, that's impressive that we can walk through the model, but I'm going to give it one more shot here just for a second, see if I'm able to. No, it doesn't look like I need it. Because of the wireless nature of this, I was trying here quickly to join my, to do this wirelessly, because there's not really a great way for me to connect an iPad to GoToMeeting here. But because this is true BIM data that we have uploaded to Glue, within the Glue app, I'm able to select any of these items in there. I could click on one of those beams, and it will actually give me back the parameters of those objects. So we take this beyond just being a really cool walkthrough tool. This is actually going to give us true BIM data. It gives us the properties of the objects. So if somebody is, if you've really fleshed out the model and provided all of the content that you really need out in the field in that BIM, you're able to access it through this web or this mobile app. There is also the option to what they refer to validate. They refer to as validate design measurements, as opposed to really it's to check measurements. We're not going to use this as a alternative to using a good old set of construction documents or actually going into the model in, say, Navisworks or Revit to pull actual dimensions. At this stage, at this level, what we're really talking about here is being able to go in and check measurements. There are tools. You can see at the bottom of that screen cap there's a little ruler icon. And this is going to allow us to either measure between 2 points that we select. It will also allow us to measure the nearest distance between 2 objects. So an example I was showing somebody is I can go in, I navigated into a restroom, and we are able to check the distance between a toilet partition and the facing wall, make sure that we're going to have sufficient accessibility clearances in there. And it just measures the nearest straight line distance between, or the shortest straight line distance between those objects. So it's for kind of checking the data. It's not necessarily for validating, yeah, we needed that to be exactly 5'3" 7/8 inch. It's more to check, is it, is it going to clear? How tall is our ceiling? How far is our ceiling above the floor?
Well, and Michael, another one that I saw recently was where an MEP firm was using it as a kind of an assembly guide, where they might have a complex, piping and duct structure that had to kind of route around itself and whatever the case may be, and so they could have that assembly drawing there on the iPad. They could be looking at the actual location. They could be saying, okay, now I can see how we bring this thing in and put it in place and lift it up. And so, a lot of uses for this kind of interaction.
Yeah, exactly. To check two pipes and make sure, see how much clearance we're going to have.
Yep.
Yeah, the one thing that the mobile app does not have is the ability to run clashes. So if we're wondering if, is a pipe interfering with anything as it runs through a mechanical room, unfortunately, the mobile app, we don't have that functionality. That's a pretty, it's a pretty intensive calculation that has to be done. So we'll take care of that on the desktop side.
Vince, the Autodesk always plays it pretty close to the vest on future technology. They don't want to oversell something, then get in trouble. But the scuttlebutt on the street is that, yes, there is an Android app in the roadmap sooner than later, and that it sounds like, from what we've heard, that the Windows app may be the third in line, but who knows what they may surprise us with here.
Yeah, it's a common question about Windows, because we're hearing from some contractors that are wanting to test out and to experiment with putting mobile ThinkPads and
Surface
tablets
and
that
all
have
that.
a little bit more computer desktop style of interaction than an iPad does. So at this point, it is iPad based, but it seems to be what we're seeing is a lot of firms are they're purchasing iPads. Really, they don't have to be the big powerful iPads. This doesn't require a huge amount of space. So just if you have an iPad with I'd recommend getting the best hardcover you can for that thing if you're going to take it in the field. And
I'll give you a little hint. I know someone who's who's been granted third-party development rights to this product that is doing some development work for the Android platform anyway. So how soon that'll be, I don't know, but it is coming.
All right. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about what BIM 360 Field is. Field is, whereas Glue is more of, primarily going to be used more on the pre-construction end of the cycle, of the construction life cycle. Field is entirely for the construction phase. The idea is to really minimize these manual processes that are typically and historically have been paper-based. We want to try and reduce errors in both human-made errors just by writing something down too quickly, or just having bad handwriting, or just forgetting altogether to enter the data when the end of the day comes. So we're trying to minimize these error-prone manual paper-based processes.
Well, Michael, I'll remind you that one of the people here in this office is actually even, and it's kind of a funny story, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but their spouse actually works in the highway construction industry and goes out with a marker and writes on the hood of his white truck. Yep. And then comes back and transcribes them in the evening. You got to laugh at that one.
Exactly. So if it works, it works. But sometimes there's, the hood's only so big, so there's only so much data you can get onto that. The idea here, though, is that we're going to do this, and that transcribing is the key there. We're trying to eliminate that transcribing as well. Trying to create a one-time data entry so that in the field, should a checklist be filled out, should an issue need to be registered when there's some sort of an issue or a problem there to the work, instead of having to write this down on a notepad and then ask somebody to transcribe it, and then to transcribe it and attach it to an email and then send it out to all the
file it properly and
correct and follow up.
Send it to OSHA correctly and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate that. We're going to make it so that at one time, at a single moment in time, you can enter this data, and that's it. You're done. You just sync this back in when you get back to the office. There's a button we'll see that you click. It says sync my data, and out it goes into the project. All necessary parties are informed of this issue.
Or if you're out in the field and you find a problem, whatever it may be. Let's say there's a hole in the drywall and you need that sent out. You can take a picture of it and send that right off to the drywall guy right there if you need to. So it's that, like you say, that quest for high degree of accuracy and time savings.
Yeah, with the iPad you're able to snap a photo. That's what they're showing right there. That's what that iPad photo is somebody actually taking a photo and attaching that photo. They're literally from within the app. They created a new issue, attach the photo, it takes the image, and you can then mark up on the image, and you can tag the interested parties in that issue, and they will be informed of the problem, and everybody gets an email, and everybody knows that this issue has been logged. And then as the projects wear on, this project and your other projects, as they run their course, BIM 360 Field will also allow for real-time performance tracking. So we're going to be able to view each subcontractor's performance and their quality conformance. We're going to be able to keep an eye on our safety programs more proactively rather than reactively when we realize that we're having a lot of similar issues being recorded or problems coming up on our projects. We were speaking with a client who was interested in this because they really wanted to be able to track how each of their subs were doing. They were using, as is often the case, one sub will be working on multiple projects for a given company, maybe across the city or across the state or the country, and you have multiple people kind of keeping an eye on each of those projects. Somebody back at the office is going to have a little bit more trouble getting the data. How is this subcontractor actually performing? How quickly are they actually closing out these issues? Are they taking 12 days where the average time for the rest of the project has been about 8 days to close out an issue? Well, maybe we're seeing that across all of the projects they're working on. We can address that before it's too late. Instead of looking back and saying, man, it would have been great if we'd had this certain contractor or certain sub. I'm trying not to use any particular trade.
Right.
And try to be very PC about it. But if we have a particular sub that maybe at the end, you get all the team members together and they say, you know what, we see now in hindsight that this was the bottleneck. We can track that real time. That small image you see there at the top is actually what it's a dashboard. It's a real-time dashboard that's reporting back the important key performance data that we really need. We can customize that and tailor it to just the exact information that each person needs and each role on the project. The subs get access to their own information, but the superintendents and PMs and those kind of things, they'll get access to a lot more data. We can customize and tailor that. Key performance, KPIs, key performance indicators is what we're talking about there with the dashboard. So this field management everywhere.
This is the Bob the Builder version.
Yeah,
by the way.
I always feel like I say everywhere. Is the idea here is that throughout the project, during the project, at all times, everywhere, we've got access to this information, and everyone has access to it. See up there in the upper right, there's the owner. We have executives potentially, maybe for the contractor, or maybe they're third parties. We have the architect engineer. They can get access to this. Not just the people sitting in the job trailer who have access to the pile of paperwork, of checklists, and all that kind of thing until it gets manually entered into the system. It's not like that with the field. The idea here is that everything is getting entered automatically or at a single time, and anybody can access the data that they need when they want it.
You need to get a hold of the owner and the architect because you've spotted an issue in the field. Then bring them up. The whole project has access to this information. Call them up, ask them to log in, bring this up. Everybody can see the issue, hopefully get it resolved, and move on much quicker.
Absolutely, yeah, and we can check it if there has been an issue. Maybe has it been resolved yet? We can track all that data. So what is BIM 360 Field really? It allows for tracking of quality programs. Really, it's the main component here is we're talking about maintaining a quality program. This is a managed quality program. This is also going to incorporate safety programs. There are safety functions, safety tracking and proactive safety programs built into the Field app. Another very important component, though, is bringing documents to the field. We saw that with Glue, you're able to access a BIM model on the cloud, pretty much from anywhere that you have access to the internet, or you can take it with you. Within Field, you can also bring the important information, the important documents with you on the iPad. There's a library feature that we can attach whatever information we need to. What we're talking about here is things like the actual construction documents. You have DWFs, you have PDFs, put them in the library. You have a project manual in PDF format, put it in the manual. Cut sheets, or put it in the library, your cut sheets, installation instructions. Any kind of data that would ordinarily be sitting on somebody's desktop computer, on the desktop computer itself, or in a big old binder sitting on a shelf, we're going to put that into the library, and we're going to bring those documents with us into the field, not by stacking a bunch of drawings in our arm, but actually putting them on the iPad, having direct access to them. There's another component to that, and it's actually Field BIM data is what we refer to it as. It's actually, if you opt for the Glue component along with Field, it gives you access to actual BIM data also from within the Field app. So not only can we view two-dimensional drawings, we can also access the Revit models, or the if we push it through from Navisworks, we can actually access that 3D model similar to what we just saw in the Glue app.
Now, something that's important there that, hopefully you caught that. Michael said that important thing is you do need Glue and Field together, which is really the most economical way to buy it anyway, in order to access actual models in Field and look at them. Important thing is that while you can look at Revit models, if you want to look at aggregated models, let's say a Tekla model, a Revit model, and an ArchiCAD model all together, or something along those lines, then you would need to push that through Navisworks in order to be able to see that aggregation issue. It's not hard to do, it's just a workflow thing, but that's how you would do it.
Right, and to make that process easier, there is actually what you would do is you would get once you're up and running with Glue with Field, you can actually get these plugins so that you're able to glue. We refer to it as gluing those models from directly within those programs. So if you're using Navisworks as your aggregation and coordination tool, there'll be a plugin that you can download from Autodesk, and once the model is ready to go, you can glue it up to the project site, and it'll immediately become available within Glue. So that's on the Glue side. On the I believe that will also glue it through within if it's integrated into your project site for Field, that should also make the data available there.
That's the way I understand it as well. And I'm just a sales guy, so I'll tell you anything if you'll buy it.
That's what you wanted to hear, then that's what it is. So how does it provide, oh, there was actually one more component there I forgot to talk about. Equipment, commissioning, handover, and operations. That's the fourth key to this, the field tools that we have available here. So this equipment, commissioning, and handover, what field is going to allow us to do is to actually track equipment for the project, not just track it as it's once it's in place, but track it throughout the entire process. If you've plugged in the various entities, the manufacturer, the fabricator, this allows you to do things like barcoding and tracking of assets. When we say the word equipment, though, we're not necessarily talking about just a piece of equipment. I'm not saying just the air handler or the VAV that we're putting in the ceiling. This can really be anything that you want to track to the level of individual piece of equipment. You could theoretically barcode and track every stick of framing that gets placed into the site. I don't know if you want to take it to that level, but this is something that has to be kind of considered on a per project basis. But this is going to allow you to track that information. What's really cool is that this data gets tracked. You can actually push it back into your into the Navisworks model as well, with color coding and those kind of things. You can have a status color coding on the Navisworks side. So if a product is in shipment, in transit, if that has been tracked within this system, you can push that data back into the Navisworks model and have it turn pink. Once it's on site, you can have it turn yellow. And once it's installed, you can have it turn green. And once it's commissioned and ready to run and everything's been checked off, you can have it turn blue. Have you used that one yet?
No.
Okay, have it turn blue.
That was my choice.
You can actually track it. So back in the office, people can actually view these things in a color-coded way. So how does it do that? There's an online and a mobile component to the whole system, to the field system. The online app, the online app through the desktop. There's the mobile app. It was a document library that includes markup. That's another great thing, is we can actually mark up documents. So if we were to find a deficiency to the work in the field, I can actually access maybe a floor plan and say, put a bubble around it, say, right here, corner of room 101, we've got we've got an electrical outlet that is protruding past the drywall. So we can track that. We can mark it up in the drawing. We can then distribute that to the interested parties. We have checklists with company-wide templates. That's a really important part of it, is that we can template all the information. So as you go through and and actually there's a library of templates that is part of Field, that comes with Field. So if you're new to the whole thing, maybe you haven't been using a really highly managed process, you've been using Excel just to, on the fly. Or your truck. Or your truck and a Sharpie. There are templates that are included that you can start from and then of course customize them. There are also methods by which you can pull through any of the data you've been using up to this point. If it's formatted properly, we can import data in. So we can bring these checklists in and create these company-wide templates so that you can standardize the checklists. You can standardize the documents that are used throughout your entire company, not just project level. We're talking the entire company can now be using the exact same forms to fill out a checklist before you close up the wall, before a piece of equipment is commissioned. We can make it so that everybody's using the same documents there. And again, these aren't checklists that we're going to print and stick on a clipboard and use a pen to fill out. These are all going to happen. They're going to be available right there on the iPad.
Yeah, and somebody's going to go back to their, instead of going back to the office, you're connected. So if you've got three guys looking at three different sides of an air handler, and one of them's checking this, one of them's checking that, and one of them's checking the other, and they all go into the checklist and put their notes and whatever it may be, that immediately gets transmitted back to the project files, connected to that air handler unit, and it becomes a permanent part of the record. So there's no loss there.
We can, sorry, I'm getting my bearings here on my slide. Issue tasks and work to complete, punch, and more. So these issues, this is really a great feature. This is actually one of the first things that people want to see when we get a chance to demonstrate Field for you, is this issues creation and issuing of tasks. So with the iPad, with the Field app, when you're out in the field, we're able to generate issues. We don't have to necessarily say, let's go out and let's go inspect something. You can actually generate an issue at any specific time. If you're just walking the site, we're able to create an issue and log it into the system. We can also generate tasks. So we might have a checklist that needs to be performed once a week, a safety inspection, on a routine basis. Maybe there's a date assigned to one of these tasks to fill out a checklist for a particular workflow. We can assign those within the system, and again, this can be pre-assigned and templated so that when this checklist or this task is completed, all necessary parties are informed of that work having been done.
That task can be sent out to the proper party right then and there so that they get the notice that, hey, this is broken, not right, wrong color, whatever it might be, and it's noted and then tracked. And
then this last component, analytical reporting for management. Those are the dashboards. I'm going to try and show you that here in a little bit. This is actually web-based. I'll show you that side of it. And then at the bottom there, they have the field BIM component. So that's listed out separately because it is, I don't know if the term is an add-on. It's one of a two-part solution here that we'd want to talk about. But the field BIM is the BIM models, the BIM data. They're at your disposal within the app or within the library of field. So this is just a quick slide here about, quick and really straightforward. The big red arrow, that's what we're talking about here. The big red down arrow, that's the problem we're trying to address by using these tools. Unmanaged QA and QC basically is going to lead to a lot of late project rework of problems. So early on in the process, when things are really moving fast, oftentimes a lot of the day-to-day stuff that needs to happen maybe is skipped over because there just isn't time. There's too much going on. Maybe it's just forgotten for some reason, or maybe it's just not necessarily. It's up to each person.
The communication doesn't get to somebody.
Right.
Forgot to send an email, make a call.
So as the project wears on, we start to run into a lot of more problems, right? It's time to button up. We're going to start putting on the drywall, and we've got a lot of problems that need to be addressed. Suddenly we realize, hey, there's a bunch of electrical fissures or plumbing or something that hasn't been installed. How come? I thought somebody was informed, the necessary subs to come out here and finish stuff up. Well, oh, that's right. I made a note. I stuck it in the back of my clipboard, and it's still there. I forgot to go send it out. All these kind of problems start to rear their ugly heads late in the game. It leads to rework costs, causes potentially a missed deadline, lower profitability. We're going to lose money on this.
It cuts down on the caulk the hell out of it principle.
Yeah. Beat it to fit and paint it to match, right? With the field structured QA/QC process, because of the nature of this tool, that it's going to have tasks built into it, checklists and timelines that are more easily adhered to, and because it's so much less difficult to actually get this management done, to get this field management process and basically keep tabs on it. Throughout the entire process, we're going to significantly increase the number of observations, the amount of information that is tracked and properly distributed and disseminated throughout the project and throughout the team, so that we significantly reduce those rework costs later on in the project. Everything has been tracked all along the way. It's going to significantly increase the likelihood that we'll make our deadline and potentially reap the rewards of bonuses and really also leading to increased work, potential future work. When you can actually demonstrate that you have managed to employ this tool to consistently improve quality and time and budget on your projects, this is really going to lead to a lot of future work.
Most of you have probably picked up on the theme by now that big red arrows pointing down are bummer, and big green arrows pointing up are like happy.
Yeah, after the last few years, we're real tired of seeing big red down arrows. We want to see green up arrows now. There's a safety component to field. This is the traditional safety program. Now, I'm not going to say that this is really a perfectly accurate model of how it's always gone, but to say that oftentimes, safety is for the inspector. We know we're supposed to put on our hard hat. We know we're supposed to put on safety glasses, whatever, fall protection, hearing protection, all those things. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do for that personal stuff for the most part, but maybe it doesn't always happen. And what typically happens is something, there's an event, and somebody, it's obvious somebody's standing on a ladder improperly, whatever it is, and we're going to track those negatives when somebody violates the safety programs and they get in trouble, they get notified of it. Somebody not really sure how they're supposed to address some safety concern. What do we have to do? Well, we got to go find the information. If we don't have it within our own team, how do we get that information? Well, we got to go find the safety guy. And the outcome is that we don't drive good behavior. We can't really track the performance. Maybe anecdotally you're hearing that there's a particular issue that's commonly happening on the project, but if it's not actually getting tracked, then how do we measure what's happening here? With using Field, we have the ability to create checklists, and we can actually remind people that it's time to go perform a safety checklist, to go walk the site, make some observations. We can actually track both positive and negative. Because these are checklists, you can actually go through and say, yes, 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 yes. We have the following 15 items. We have full conformance. Everybody's actually doing a great job. Now we can actually see that we're doing a great job, or that we've got a routine and repeating issue coming up, because we have then lastly this dashboard, this reporting dashboard that actually tells us how have these the important piece of information, or how has been the outcome tracking these. What have we seen and actually observed on site? And of course, leading to safer projects, which is always great. That's the primary concern, but it also can help reduce your insurance costs if you're having a significant reduction in hazards, and you can actually show that these safety programs are in place. This is a very confusing slide to me. I sit and ponder on it a lot as to how I might best explain it to everybody. But the idea here is that then this last, I was talking about commissioning handover at the end of a project, transferring all the information that's been gathered during the construction process and modified throughout the construction process as issues came up. How do we then transfer that data to the operations end of the project lifecycle? That's 85% of a building's life is the actual operation. Well, it's very difficult to get all of that information handed over. What are we doing typically or currently? Well, there's a big stack of drawings with a bunch of notes. Maybe those have actually been coordinated and included in the most current model. Maybe that stuff has actually been worked out. Maybe there's just a project binder that says, well, here's what we actually did in the end. And for an owner-operator to leverage that data, it becomes very time-consuming and difficult and maybe even impossible. So by using a this cloud-based and easily accessible tool, now we can actually significantly increase the quality, the amount and the quality of the data that is going to be handed over to the end user of this product, of this project, because we can so much more cleanly communicate this data and track and record the data. So here are the key features of BIM 360 Field. There's the web-based app. The web-based, well, it's an app really. It's a website. You log in through your desktop computer, any basically web-enabled device, but really we're talking about computers here. And it's available to everybody. So we have it available to the contractor and subs and owners and architects. All these different roles are defined. And what I mean by that is that a common concern is, wow, I don't really necessarily want my subs having access to every bit of information that is being produced during the construction of this building. We get to control who has access to what. Each of these roles is defined. The architect has data for certain piece of information or access to certain piece of information. The subs have different information. The owner has what they need. The contractor pretty much gets everything. They can access whatever they particularly want to see. And they can report on that data. So those reports, this is a dashboard. Let me actually try real quick and see if I can, whoop, wrong one. I want to flip over here to my Field App. So we get this dashboard here that is going to allow us to track all these key performance indicators. Right there's the issue tracker. I can actually view how many issues are being tracked. Am I seeing that red section at the top slowly diminish as the project wears on, and the green section at the bottom increase? Am I closing issues faster than they're being created as the project wears down to the end? We can actually go and see there's the companies with most unresolved issues. Who's keeping up? Who do we have problems with? And we can customize these reports to report a single contractor on a single project. We can view one contractor across all the projects on which they're participating. We can see how long is it taking them to close a response, or to respond to an issue. How long is it taking them to close? There's something called a root cause. You can define your root causes. Are you having an issue that seems to be a root cause of insufficient specifications? You're getting a lot of questions or a lot of improperly installed work because people are coming back and saying, oh, I didn't know, it wasn't in the drawing, so I just took my best guess. It wasn't specified. You can list that as a root cause. You're having a lot of damage after work has been installed. You're having secondary damage to it. We can track that as well, and we can address that before it's too late. This is real time. Because we're tracking that instantly on our iPad and syncing it back here, this is a real-time report. So that real-time data is really the important part there. We have email and drill-down capabilities. I won't get into that. That's something we'd like to show you in person, really, to give you a walkthrough how this works. There's the mobile app. So the iPad application will allow you to take this into the field. It takes your library of your documents with you into the field. It will let you track your issues right then and there electronically. There's no writing it down and then putting it into the computer later. They mentioned phone here. Now I do want to say that really the iPad app is the primary tool for going out into the field. But if you find yourself in a situation where you didn't bring the iPad or you're not necessarily the one with the iPad, there is a method by which you can use the phone. You can take a photo, send an email to a specified email address that's part of the project, and that will get tracked as kind of a generic issue. But you don't have to have the iPad just to create an issue. You can also create issues on the web-based app. So if your sub doesn't have an iPad, they can go back to the job trailer. They can use their laptop if they have that, and they can log in and actually create issues that way. But the mobile app is going to be your primary tool when you're out on site.
Believe me, life gives you many ways to create issues.
Just what we need, more ways to create issues. So that's no connectivity required then. The way that the iPad works, a very common question is, well, I don't have very good, we have a problem on site. We're trying to find a way to create ubiquitous Wi-Fi for everyone on the entire site. Not going to happen. It's very difficult to maintain that. No problem. With the iPad mobile app, the way that everything works is that you sync the information you need that time, that moment, that day, before you leave the Wi-Fi connection. This includes your library of documents, your checklists, the issues. Maybe you want a list of all the outstanding issues that haven't yet been closed. You sync all of that data to your iPad. When you go out in the field and you fill out a checklist, you generate a dozen issues, you take these photos and attach them. All of that gets saved locally on the iPad, and when you get back to internet connection, you click a little sync button in the app. You can tell it which items get synced, but it'll sync all of the important data back into the web-hosted project. Everything gets immediately uploaded. All the emails get distributed to the necessary people. You don't have to, again, remember to then click the send email button. It's already done when you sync back up. And then lastly, again, Field BIM. If you have the BIM 360 Glue component, you will have access to the BIM models. And I know BIM, the M in BIM stands for model, so I'm saying
it twice.
Saying it twice, but
the word's so nice we say it twice.
Yeah, it's hard to say just BIM for me for some reason, but
yep.
You can get it there on the iPad. You can have it with you on site in the field.
And again, that's the area where you do need to have that glue and field together in order to really use the drawing models and or the project models and so forth. Be able to see them and sync them with field. So here's a few of the many companies that have been using these products successfully for actually some time. Many of them have been using the field especially for quite some time. Autodesk has rolled this out over the past year here as a unified product package. And Michael, I don't know if we have any slides on how it's kind of structured pricing-wise or if I should just kind of go into that here.
What I want to point out here is that you might notice that depending on your particular line of work, some of these names might be more familiar than others. But what we want to point out is that not only are we talking about here that this field and glue are of use to the design team or the contractor or the construction team. You might notice there's a lot of owner-operator companies listed in here.
Yep.
There's a lot of companies that are actually building management and large, well, a lot of them have their own in-house design construction departments as well. But this is a very powerful tool, not just for the actual 15% as the project gets built. It's a great tool going forward for these owner-operators as well.
So Vince asks, how does the licensing of glue work? And we'll go into that right now. You know, there's always the improved profitability and help you win more work and all the things that we always all say out here, and you kind of go, yeah. How does it work? There's like with so many things with Autodesk, there's no short answer, but there's some pretty good answers. For a time, the products were based on a kind of a license model with a 5-month, or it is cloud-based, it is rented, it is not bought. We won't go there. I was going to say kind of like beer in a way, but but anyway, I did it anyway, didn't I?
You did.
It is rented, not bought. So the way it works, glue in particular can still be rented at a 5-seat, 3-month minimum for $65 per seat per month. So a little over about $325 is the minimum for a 3-month term. You can rent it for up to 36 months. Was just a couple months ago that you could rent field and glue together for $100. That's no longer available. Autodesk is doing 2 things with those products now. One, it is available field and glue together under the whole BIM 360 cloud umbrella there for basically a percentage of the product price. So it's project price. So it's basically you want to use it on an 18-month project and the project has a $10 million value. And I'm sorry, there's a pretty lengthy tier of, depending on how big the project is, how the price is affected. So I would have to get back with you on a more personal basis to tell you some of those things. But it's basically a very minute percentage of a project price. Or there is also an enterprise program for field and glue where a company can rent it for a term and be able to use it across their enterprise. That's generally, the way that Autodesk has that structured right now is generally for larger companies. The way that this is typically used, this product set is typically used, is that a construction firm or perhaps an owner, or it may be an architect or an MEP, it may be one of those groups, but for the most part it's usually a construction company, a GC, or an owner that licenses the software or rents the software as part of the project, and then basically says we probably need 56 seats to farm out to all of the various subs and parties on the project, and then that particular party, architect, or GC, whatever, sets up the templating so that the permissions are there and the information flows back and forth and everything comes into play. It's really not an individual product in any great way. We do have some mechanical contractors who are looking to use it on their plant site to monitor palletizing things, loading them up, shipping them out, tracking the RFI codes or the barcodes and whatever, the flow through the plant as things move through from raw material and design through to manufacturing and out the door on the truck. So there's a number of ways it can be used. It's also being used to some degree in areas of horizontal construction like heavy highway and things like that as well. So a lot of ways it can be used. But the irony of today's presentation is that because of the technology of hardwired computers, it's a little bit hard to show you the iPad for us right now and so forth. So what we'd like to urge is that if you would like to see it in more detail, Michael and I or one of our other staff members would be happy to come out and show it to you, and even maybe buy you lunch if you're nice to us, and give you a bit better preview of it. So give us a call if that's important to you. Michael, do you have anything to wrap up here?
Absolutely. We'd love to come out and show this, let you see kind of more hands-on. So give us a call. Our phone number here at the bottom of the screen, info@cad-1.com as well. If you'd like a little more hands-on and a little bit more personal demonstration of the tools here.
So thank you for joining us today. We're really excited about this product. It offers a lot of new ideas in the building process, but you'll want to take a look at it. So anyway, with that, we'll say goodbye and see you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.